everyone, my name is Sierra and this is Sierra the Book Addict. Welcome back to my channel. I apologize for the lack of colorful background, but yeah, that's not to do. So, today's video is actually going to be my July and August wrap-up. I was supposed to do this in July, so I was done two separately, but it didn't work out that way. Excuse me. Pardon me. Allergies. So much fun. So anyway, we're just going to talk about the books I read in July and August, and some of my reading plans for the next maybe 2 months, since I'm doing really badly. I always seem to do that when I do really good at the beginning of the year for the first 2 to 3 months, and then everything just plummets, and I really need to fix that. So I would actually like to start doing more buddy reads. I'll try and post what I'm going to be reading on my Instagram and Twitter more, so that way in case anyone actually wants to read or seem interested in wanting to buddy read one of the books for that month, we can figure something out. But yeah, so let's just dive in to July. So the first book I read in July was The Silent Patient. I think I talked about this a little bit in my last video, but this was a reread for me from my book club that I have, which is private. And I realized I don't like to reread thrillers just because I don't feel the same excitement or emotion as when I first read it. Like, I already knew what was going to happen, and it was just kind of boring for me. Sure, it was kind of nice to kind of maybe spot some of the differences that maybe I missed when I first read the first time, but I wasn't exactly, like, over the moon over it, and I think I ended up giving it, like, 3 stars, just because it wasn't really, didn't add anything to my reading life. I wasn't blown away, I wasn't excited to reread it. It was okay, and I definitely don't think I'll be rereading again, just because, no. It wasn't bad, but, you know. So next I read was The Pull of the Stars, and I apologize if I don't say author names. I will have them in the description down below with the Goodreads link. I believe it was Emma Donoghue is the author for that one, and that was an interesting one because it was kind of like a pandemic. So basically it was about kind of like one of the plagues during World War One. It's about this woman who's in her late 20s. She's turning 30. She's a nurse. She's kind of combating the pandemic, but she's also helping people give birth, and with very low amount of staff, kind of like we're having now. It's very difficult, and she is given this young girl named Birdie, who doesn't who doesn't know anything about anything, as kind of like an assistant due to shortage, and they've kind of learned how to interact with each other, and how Birdie just kind of like jumps in and helps whenever she can. This was very well done, but it was also a little bit disturbing, pandemic-wise, yay. But also, it was very, very graphic. Like the birthing scenes and the scenes of like the people, I'm just gonna say, dying, was a bit like, oh wow, that's very, very graphic. Like, Emma Donoghue did not hold back whatsoever with details. So it's just like, oh wow. But it was also really done well. There was a tiny scene of romance, which was not necessarily needed in the book. And I don't know really why it was included, but it was, and I don't think it was necessary. Didn't add anything to the story. in my perspective, but there is something that does traumatic happen at the end. And it was really interesting. Like, it was weird but interesting at the same time. But I enjoyed it a lot. Excuse me. Sorry. Allergies again. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, it wasn't bad. I think I gave that one 3 or 4 stars as well. The Lady Rogue by Jen Bennett. Now, this one I do remember. This one's more of a YA book, which I don't read too much of that anymore, but as I keep going in my giant reading list, there's going to be some more YA. But this was really fun. This is basically a young girl having to deal with the mysterious disappearance of her father, who is very controlling because of the traumatic death of her mother. And she has to basically partner up with the love of her life, who basically her father banned from living with them because of a incident on her birthday. And so it's her and this young man, Huxley, who are trying to track down her father, and it also has to do a lot with vampires. And mostly Dracula and this special ring that he had, and traveling to Romania to find the father and to find out what the hell is going on, because there's so much weird, like, creepy wolves and vampire guys, and just, it was a lot of fun. I listened to this on audiobook, and it was probably the most fun I had in a while with the audiobook, considering I listened to this on a patient through audio. And it was loads of fun. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't, just because it was super, super fun, and just, this is the kind of best YA of being just, like, over dramatic, but also just in a fun way, full of adventure and things that you would never, like, not believe as realistic, but in that sense is fun. Like, to steal a mail plane in Romania and go off to try and find the father. Like, it was just great. Then I read The Sundown Motel. This is also a thriller, mystery. It was okay. I considered it very slow to begin with, and it kind of picked up, but then it just was like, eh. Like, there was only like one surprise twist, and that was at the end. For me, that was really like, oh wow, I did not see that coming. But the rest of it was just, I don't know, I felt like it dwelled too much. So basically, it's about it's a dual perspective between a niece and an aunt, where the aunt goes to this motel known as the Sundown Motel, and she becomes the night collector to earn some money, but then some creepy shit starts happening, and she magically disappears in the 80s one day while at a shift at the Sundown Motel. So her niece, like 40 years later, goes and tries to figure out what happened to the aunt, and she also takes a job at the Sundown Motel to kind of see what happened, or maybe why her aunt disappeared. And she meets this guy who essentially has like a rough past, but he also is able to see these ghosts that live in the motel, which is what the aunt sees, and the niece. And things kind of more subtle, unlike the 4 cases. There's 4 different women that were killed. I guess 3 different women, sorry, that were killed in between certain dates of when the aunt was there and when the aunt disappeared. And both the aunt and the niece kind of dwell on it and kind of make connections with the same people to try to discuss the cases, but also so she can find her aunt. And I think it dwells more on like these 3 individual women and the killer. And it was okay. Like, I wasn't like impressed. And the ghost thing was a little hard to kind of digest, because it was a little bit confusing at times, because it just felt like there was so much happening, like when the ghost opened the door, and it was just very chaotic. And there was only like one, like different, like I said, for instance, where the ending was a surprise, but other than that, it was not bad. wasn't good. Wasn't too bad. I think I gave it 3 stars, and I think I gave Lady Rogue 4 stars. So then August hit, and I hit a reading slump. So I started Malice by Heather Winter, like something. Sorry, Paige, forgive me. I'm like totally blanking out on her name, and I don't know what I'm carrying at this very second, but Heather Walter. Sorry. Heather Walter. Anyway, I give 4 stars because it wasn't amazing to me, but it wasn't bad either. Like, I liked the retelling of concepts of Malice, or Alice, as her name is in the book, or Maleficent, as a retelling of Maleficent. It was very Disney-like. Like, it didn't seem overly new. Like, it had some new elements, it had a lot of different things going for it, but for me, I really struggled to read it. It took me like 3 weeks, and it kind of gave me a reading slump, just because, I don't know, it was just too Disney-ish, too lovey-dovey, kind of fluffy, just too, I don't know. It just didn't sit well with me, and I know my friend Paige from Pages of Paige loves Malice, so sorry. But I feel like me and Cara from Michaelides both have the same, like, opinion that on Malice, just because it just didn't sit well with either one of us. But I didn't hate it, but I definitely don't think I'm going to be continuing on with the duology of it, just because of that. And it also put me in a reading slump, so yay. So next, we actually have 2 more books. And next is the Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels. This was so much fun. Oh my god. Ugh. It's hilariously funny, witty, bit sexual, just bunches of just hilarious laughter. So it's basically about this young woman who lives with her aunt, and they're like these proper English society ladies, except they're pirates. And they basically, carry guns or weapons and the whole thing. And they have a magical ability to make their houses fly like ships. And so they're kind of like air pirates. And so when they're having tea one day, this young man basically breaks their window and claims he's an assassin for another one of the Wisteria Society ladies, but he falls in love with her. But he's conflicted because he's paid one half to kill her and the other half to protect her. And so he's conflicted while she's trying to find a way to essentially become a part of the society, higher part of the Wisteria Society, but also to kill her father, who eventually killed her mother, because he's an obsessive pirate himself who just wants to write poetry because he believes he is a descendant of the Brontes. And it is just witty and funny and has some very steamy scenes and is just absolutely brilliant. The second book is coming out next year, and I honestly cannot wait to read this because it's going to be on witches. So they're different, like, magical element creatures, but in like their own societies. And the next one's going to be about witches, and I'm so excited. It was so good. Please go pick up this book. It's just pure perfection. And the last is Learning to See, which is a fictional biography about Dorothea Lange, who was a suffrage photographer during the 30s and 40s. She took a lot of pictures of like the concentration camps in America for the Japanese and Koreans, and Taiwanese, all of them. And also like pictures of people traveling from the southern states to California during the Dust Bowl era, and just kind of her life dealing with her children because they don't appreciate her work because she keeps leaving them, and her husband who is a consistent drinker, and her new husband who he is a professor, and it just kind of gives a very dynamic of a woman who had a very complicated life. And it was very interesting. I enjoyed it. I didn't know much about her before, and so obviously I can't go completely off of this novel, but it was very enjoyable. And if you know anything about Dorothea Lange or have seen any of her work, I would recommend to check it out, just because it was very insightful, even if it was just a fictional novel. And so, that's kind of my wrap-up. It was an interesting month because I read 4 books in July, 3 books in August, and I'm not doing so good right now. I'm actually, it's already the 15th, so I haven't even finished 1 book yet. And the 1 book I am reading is Behemoth. I have 300 more pages to go. I didn't realize it was like 700-ish pages. So, if anyone wants to do some sprints or anything like that, let me know. Hopefully I can start a new book next week. And my goal is to try and finish Behemoth by Saturday, but we shall see. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this wrap-up. I hope you found a book that is interesting to you. And I will see you guys all really soon. Bye!